Welcome back to the Sunday Supplement. Just can't keep Manchester City out of the headlines. This is the latest picture. This is Carlos Tevez, the captain. Manager Roberto Mancini having a touchline row because Tevez was substituted, and one of his mates said he was so angry because he loves to play every minute of every game, but not really the behaviour of a captain.
Not really. I mean, it's not a new thing, Tevez and Mancini being at odds with each other. The interesting thing for City is that this actually seems to have spurred Tevez on for even better performances. You know, he seems to be one of those players that when he feels he's got a grievance, he expresses it on the pitch. I think this is a problem for the club, but not necessarily for this season. I think there's going to be a problem in keeping Carlos Tevez there long term. But at the moment, you know, it's working on the pitch. He's going out there and he's been, you know, he's the sole reason they're still in the title race.
Yes.
He's playing brilliantly every week. As I say, the problem will come at the end of this season when he and I believe his advisors will be looking for a move.
I mean, made him captain to keep, presumably, him happy. He's also, Mancini says of this incident, oh, I like my players to be angry. I mean, that's just soft-peddling him to keep him happy?
Yeah, and it was a curious choice of captaincy because, you know, Tevez is a little bit on the kind of, I wouldn't say shy, but he's a bit dour, so he's not, you know, he's not a big sort of communicator, and his English is pretty poor. So it was obviously, you know, a bit of a sort of stunt to keep him happy. And Mancini, you know, he says that about every situation. Whenever there's a bust up, he says, "Oh, I'm pleased that the players show passion. I'm pleased about this." And you know, maybe he is because he seems to be quite an abrasive fellow himself. But it's going to be a problem keeping it all together long term.
I think one of the biggest cliches in football for me is these sort of things happen every day of the week at every club,
every workplace,
and they don't. It's just not. I mean, I heard Martin Keown on the radio yesterday, and you were thinking he's going to say, "Oh, it's always happens like this." He didn't. He actually expressed that there's problems. This is before Tevez. That was in relation to Balotelli's bust up. And you're thinking, you know, these things do not happen every day on a training pitch. They're happening pretty regularly at Manchester City. You've got a lot of volatile characters, egos, too many of them really, because
you've also got different pay scales, and whenever there's a dressing room with wildly different salaries, you've got that kind of problem.
Actually, I love the conspiracy theory, which was that because AC Milan want Balotelli, and Boateng's brother played for AC Milan. So Boateng, that's absolutely brilliant. I love that. That it was deliberate to try and get him to AC Milan.
The Sunday Times are saying here, this story, that a lot of stars will be forced out of Manchester City in January. I mean, the list here that they're mentioning includes Wayne Bridge, Lescott, Sean Wright-Phillips, Adebayor, Santa Cruz, Shea Given. I mean, how do you get rid of that lot and get your money back? You don't.
You don't, but they don't care, do they? They can rush it off. The only one of those who you think there's a market for is Adebayor, because anywhere he goes to, Given potentially.
Goodbye, Given, yeah.
But anywhere Adebayor goes for the first 6 months, he'll be great, and then it will start being Adebayor again.
Yeah,
wherever, you know, that's his way, isn't it?
I mean, it's not new, is it, that City want to offload those sort of players? There are certain players also who are perceived as a bit of a problem there because they're agitators. I'm not saying they're necessarily mentioned in that particular group, but there are certain people who are thought to be agitators who causing problems within the dressing room, and there will be better shifts. The trouble is they shift some agitators out, new agitators come in. I mean, the arch agitator is Balotelli, isn't he? He's only just arrived. Goodness knows how long he's going to survive, but he is not a man to unite a dressing room. Just can't.
No, but I mean, to take your point, how do you unite a dressing room? I mean, is it
well,
always
you've got to pay everybody 250 grand
well, that's the
basically,
point, isn't it? You know, that is the problem which will be ongoing.
It will, and you know, I think there's also a problem where some players feel that Mancini does give them a little bit, you know, worse treatment than others, and Balotelli's perceived
Balotelli is
a bit
perceived
of a
as getting an easy ride, as somebody who can just please himself, do what he wants, walk off training pitches if he feels like it, and others are saying, oh, hang on, why is that all right for him? And I think there's actually a situation where Mancini is still trying to get in everybody who he thinks he can control. I think if he thought he could survive without Tevez, I don't think he'd have a huge problem with Tevez going. But he knows that actually Tevez, whatever their problems, as Jonathan just said, is still playing really, really well, which says a lot for him in some ways. He can't stick the manager, and he still plays well.
We've got, apparently, you know, we hear so much stuff about what a mess it is and what a... Since they lost to Wolves, they've gone 6 unbeaten. They've conceded 2 goals. They're 4 points behind. Hey, they'll be ahead of Chelsea tomorrow. They're 4 points behind the lead. They are in this for real. And also, they can go out and spend £100 million in January and not even notice it.
Well, there might be 60 million on Gareth Bale, look, with Adebayor as a sort of £1 million bait. No. But, whatever
big bit of bait, though, isn't it?
Whatever the balance is. But Spurs surely wouldn't sell anyway.
No, not now.
Would they sell for that amount, 60 million?
I think you'd be tempted. You'd be mad not to be tempted.
But do you think Gareth Bale would be tempted to go to Man City? Maybe I'm naive. Maybe I'm like the England 2018 bid team. But Gareth Bale strikes me as the one sort of footballer for whom the football might come, the enjoyment of playing the football, who might recognise that having been at Tottenham, this has been a fantastic season. He could not have enjoyed his football more. I mean, I know
and
everybody gets swayed by money, but does it?
He's got to do that every week. Whereas at Spurs, because of what he's done, he can have a bad game because people will still... when he missed that penalty against Werder Bremen, he got a louder roar from the fans after missing the penalty than he had during the game against Inter Milan. Because it was like, they love him now.
I mean, he just wants to play football, Gareth Bale. I mean, and if you go to City, you're not guaranteed to play, are you? I mean, even at £60 million, you're competing with so many other players.
Yeah, and don't forget, he made the original decision to go to Spurs when the big four clubs were chasing him, but he went there because he wanted to play games, and his mum liked the place. He's that kind of lad. So he's not necessarily the kind of boy that's going to move for money. That said, City have got a way of persuading people by offering, just sums that...
But he is sort of one of the most humble footballers you
nice,
can ever meet,
nice lad, isn't
he? Lovely lad, old school, if you like, and you just maybe think that just this time there might be one who goes, no, this is the place for me, and this is where I want to stay.
He's young enough to
might
stay
change.
for 3 years.
Things might change
25.
if Harry was not the manager anymore. Say Harry became England manager in a couple of years' time. Maybe that changes the dynamic. But at the moment,
if you were his agent and offer
get the City, get the City. This is going to cost me a fortune.
20% of this, I'll get.
20% of that. Yeah. I'd be advising him to go.
Okay, if you were if you were his friend, okay.
You're saying agents aren't friends?
Yeah, okay. If you were his friend, you would say, don't go to City, stay at Spurs.
I'd say to him, you've enjoyed your football so much. Look, everybody loves you. You're playing fantastic football. You leave that pitch with a smile on your face almost every week. Even when you've lost, you still know you're enjoying your football. Why would you want to change it?
And playing every week.
That's what I'd say to him. And then I'd say, but on the other side, you're getting £250,000 a week. What do you want to do? Yeah. It's for you to weigh up, and that's the exact balancing act. And he's one player in this Premier League who might think, you know what, I think I'll stay where I am.
This is an interesting story in the news of the world, Jonathan. Manchester City are in talks with Spanish giants Real Madrid and Barcelona about the creation of a Champions League style tournament for youth players. Now, we talk a lot about the non-growth of young English players coming through English football. Well, here's an opportunity, perhaps.
It is an interesting one. I mean, I know that it's also something the Premier League are keen to do, which is to improve the sort of elite level of youth football, get young players playing against the very, very best, and they're looking at having let's say Man United play against Man City more often at youth level and have sort of more competition there and reform the youth league. Now this seems an extension of that.
Yes.
I mean, it'd be fantastic for young players to be exposed to playing against the best Italian teams, best,
Do you think clubs would release
Spanish clubs.
Clubs would release the players willingly for it or not?
I think clubs want to do something more with their youth products because with financial fair play coming up and the new sort of squad regulations, it's never been more important to have good youth players coming through. So I think they do want to do something to make sure there's more good ones being developed, and I think they would be interested
If
in
at
this.
17 you play 30 proper matches against proper players for 12 months, then when you're needed for the first team, you're 3 years ahead of where you would be otherwise.
Yeah.
If you're playing Rochdale in the reserves or whatever...
Yeah, but I have heard the argument that some of the big clubs don't play their youth players against some of the opposition big youth teams in case they get nicked, and they don't want the opposition to see how good they are. So I don't know whether it would work perfectly or not.
Because you'll correct me on this, in the next summer there's an under-19 World Cup somewhere.
In Colombia, is it?
And the FA are desperate for young England players to compete in that, but clubs don't
well, no, they won't want it. It's at the start of the season, that's why.
Well, whereas the Spanish, the Italians and the Dutch all do.
Yeah.
You know.
It starts on about July the 23rd and goes into the start of the season, so the clubs are not going to want to release.
But we were told by the FA that there is a willingness, and we always get that, but actually when it comes to the crux, when it comes down to all the clubs go, we might be needing him for the first team, so we don't really want him to go off that.
Phil Jones could play in that. All the, McEachran could play in that.
Yeah, but when I suggested Wiltshire could go into that tournament, they went, no, possibly not Wiltshire, because he's obviously established in the Arsenal first.
I'd much rather
what's the point of that then? Why can't we throw all our top players into a tournament like
to miss
that?
one league game or two league games,
exactly.
it won't happen because
No, it won't.
the clubs, understandably, because they're clubs and that's their interest, look after
However,
their
if
own
the Premier League
interests
and the FA worked closer together
Under
under Bex as a figurehead, would be all right.
just the last word on Manchester City in the Premier League. Do we now take them seriously? I mean, I'm talking about this season because Mancini said, the target is the top 4, but it's a bit more than that, isn't it?
I think absolutely, because we've been talking about this run of fixtures where United, Arsenal, Chelsea are all playing each other. City have got a great opportunity to emerge from this month there or thereabouts.
They could be top.
Maybe even top.
By January. There's 4 games over Christmas. They could be top at the end of those.
Imagine Man City being top with the transfer window opening. I mean, that's a really, really powerful position for them to be in. So my question against them would still be that I feel Mancini's a little bit cautious. I don't know if they're going to win enough games, especially away from home. I think they need to attack a little bit more. But I do, there's an opportunity there.
Like the Manchester derby, you recall, he was not interested in losing the game. That was the basis point for him.
That was very Italian mindset, wasn't it?
I mean, he needed to try and win that. When Manchester United play City at Old Trafford, I think they'll be trying to win the game. They can kill off the rivals.
Yes.
He had the opposite.
But City's attitude might be different with that. You just never know, do you? But you fear not.
Well, he did start off the season with this sort of remit to finish top 4. So I think that's perhaps where the caution comes in. He maybe had that in mind when he went into that Manchester derby. Yeah. I just wonder if his employers will now be summoning him and saying, OK, the goalposts have moved a little bit.
Actually, we can win this. OK, good. Let's switch to Monday night. Such an